Welcome in. Welcome in. Week 4 is upon us. This is the NFL DFS first look video for week 4, aka the cash process. I'm your host, Ben Hostler. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Ben Hostler. We are here to build a first look lineup for the week 4 slate. Quick recap of week 3. It was a good week for me overall. Had a good early slate lineup again. Cash lineup on the main slate was pretty much a true break even, which is weird. Normally that does not happen, but that was the case in week 3. Made a bad 2v2 decision, but I don't know how much of a difference it would have made. I think it would have led to a little more profit, but overall, I'm not mad at all about week 3. I'm not mad about the build I made. I think I made some pretty sound decisions across my lineups. The big misses for me in week 3 were Derek Carr and Juwan Jennings. Two big misses for me. The things I got right, were Amari Cooper, Malik Neighbors, Chris Olave. I hit a really nice anytime touchdown parlay that I built after the stream on Sunday. And then for the betting, I mean, I have not had a heater like this in quite some time in the betting streets. I am up almost 20 units on the NFL season. So if you're a $50 a unit better, that's $1,000. If you're a $100 unit better like myself, that's $2,000. You know, uh, no matter what unit size that you use, we are up almost 20 units, just red hot with the touchdown picks. So that's been great. As far as DFS goes, though, I'm ready to strap in and have a big week in week 4. I got a lot of people messaging me about Juwan Jennings because I was pretty adamant on Sunday morning that I did not want to play Juwan Jennings at any sort of ownership. If Juwan Jennings was going to be 1 or 2% owned, I would have been very interested in playing him. The problem with the Juwan Jennings play was that he was going to be 15 to 20% owned, maybe even higher in some of the stuff I play. If you guys are new here, I play very, very small field contests. I'm playing tournaments, higher dollar entry, but these are 200, 300, 400 person field size DFS tournaments. So the strategy for that contest size is significantly different than, if you're playing a contest, even if it's single entry. If you're playing a contest with 2,000 people in it compared to 300, like there's very, very different, decisions that you need to make, in your lineup. So if Juwan Jennings was going to be low owned, I would have been overweight on him. The problem with the Juwan Jennings play was I thought it was pretty thin in the range of outcomes and he was going to be pretty high owned. Of course, the results oriented people will say, yeah, well, he went for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns, whatever. I mean, yeah, that happened, and things like that happen in the NFL sometimes. I think if you play that game 100 times, he probably does that 1 or 2 times. So you definitely got an extreme kind of outcome there. And I don't know, it just presents us an opportunity to where people are going to play Juwan Jennings again this week, assuming, we kind of know Deebo Samuel's going to be out. George Kittle, not sure if he's going to play or not. But people might play Juwan Jennings again this week because he just went for a massive score. And I will not be playing Juwan Jennings this week again in tournaments. So kind of just a higher level talk there on DFS as a whole. But I'm looking forward to week 4. I'm excited now to kind of get into the grind of things here. Like we were kind of settled in. It's week 4. Like we can get into our routine and kind of head out from here. But let's dive in to the week 4 slate. So for week 4, we have some clear kind of chalk that's going to condense here. If we look at the games as a whole, pretty low totals across the board here. We've got a 48.5 with the Bengals Panthers, and then we've got this 50.5 with the Commanders Cardinals. So that's really where the ownership's going to concentrate. Honestly, probably on those 2 games. Like those are going to be the 2 games that everybody wants to play. Every other total is pretty bad. I mean, we're looking at Chiefs Chargers under 40, Browns Raiders under 40, 49ers Patriots under 40, Broncos Jets under 40, Rams Bears 41, a 42.5 Saints Falcons, like really just low totals across the board outside those two games. So that's kind of where the ownership I think is going to condense in your cash game and single entry contests. Starting off at quarterback here, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud at the top, all over $7,000. We had a long discussion about this last week in terms of like how I thought kind of spending down at quarterback is going to be the way to go here for the time being. And that kind of continued. I mean, Joe Burrow had a great game on Monday night. Jaden Daniels had a great game on Monday night. Josh Allen had a great game on Monday night. But on the main slate, who were like the big scorers at quarterback? Andy Dalton. Deshaun Watson was serviceable for fantasy purposes. Caleb Williams was serviceable. Sam Darnold was serviceable. Like, once again, it was really the spend down guys. So, kind of another week of data there. But yeah, at the top, I think these guys are good tournament plays. I don't really want to plug them into my first look lineup, though, because we have Kyler Murray here at 6,800 at home. Coming off a pretty mid game here, 15. He had 15 in week 1. He had 15 in week 2. Matt and I talked about this on the live stream in Sunday morning. We said, Kyler had 15 in week 1. Like, why could he not do that again in week 3 when everybody was rushing to play Kyler Murray? And, the more I thought about it, I thought that was accurate because, Detroit is a very run heavy offense when they want to be, and you can run on Arizona. So I thought that there was, chances that Detroit kind of, took the air out of the ball and really ran the ball, which they did. And that affected the game as a whole, I think. So, I think there's less concerns of that this week just because Washington doesn't have the just prowess in terms of, their identity as a team that the Detroit Lions do. So you have Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels both in this game. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate for sure. He's had 28, 13, and 28 in his first 3 NFL games. Everybody just watched him go completely nuclear on Monday Night Football. He does have a little bit of a rushing floor, not as much as we've seen in week 1. After week 1, the coaching staff for Washington very clearly said, we don't want him running that much, and he has not since. But, when they're in the red zone, they like to call the run pass option with Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson Jr. And Jaden Daniels likes to, call his own number and run that football in. So you kind of have that baked into it on top of the game atmosphere. So I'm going to put Jaden Daniels in the first look cash game lineup for this week. I think Kyler is a good play. I think Joe Burrow is a good play at 66. Tough sell for me on Burrow in cash over Murray or Daniels, but he's a historical slow starter, and that was the case again this season. 8 points, then 18, then 28. He looked like Joe Burrow to me perfectly fine in that last game. Really soft matchup here against Carolina. He's got his offense back here. T. Higgins back. Jamar Chase, fully healthy. So good spot for Burrow, but, he's going to check in after Murray and Daniels for cash. And then what to do kind of with Andy Dalton, I think will be interesting. Good chance Andy Dalton is higher owned than like you would expect. Coming off a 300-yard, 3 TD game, 27.5 DraftKings points. He's at home against Cincinnati defense that has not looked good to start the season. You get the whole revenge game narrative. People will want to buy into that. So I am looking for Andy Dalton to get some ownership in DFS contests this week. Would not consider him for cash games, but I do think he'll be high owned, so I'll mention him on this video. And then Justin Fields, assuming he starts again, I think you could put him in the conversation if you like really built a lineup you loved and you needed $1,000 savings. He's been solid and he does have a little bit of a rushing floor. Really, really good game atmosphere for them here against the Indianapolis Colts. So, worth mentioning, but I think it's Daniels or Kyler for cash games, and you kind of just move on from there. Heading over to running back, we have Saquon Barkley at the top here, who's gone completely nuclear for the Eagles. If you read my season-long article, I was one of the only people in the fantasy football space that had him ranked number 4 overall coming into the season. Someone can fact check me on that. I'm sure there's other people, but none of the big websites that offer rankings had Saquon Barkley ranked as high as 4. And we've gotten the exact role that I hoped for him. They are completely feeding him. He's the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year right now. 8K is a tough sell, but definitely feel like we need to mention him. You have Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, and Bijan Robinson, and Kyron Williams, all in this 7K tier as well. Kyron's been really inefficient this year, but he's got there on touchdowns. Like he had 3 touchdowns last week, 31 DraftKings points. So, over half of his fantasy points came on touchdowns. I don't know. Bijan hasn't had quite as big of a role as people thought coming into the season. He had 18 rush attempts in week 1. It's gone down in both games since then in pretty neutral game scripts. They were losing late to Philly, which I'm sure hurt things, but I mean, Kansas City game was pretty close throughout the game. More importantly, though, when it comes to Bijan Robinson, 5 targets in week 1, 5 in week 2, only 2 last week, so that's worth noting there. I'm not going to plug any of these guys into the first look lineup. I think if I was going to pick somebody, it would be Saquon, just given the role we've seen from him. But yeah, none of these guys are going to fit my early build. I'm going to go right back to Jordan Mason here at running back. I know it's a weird game here against New England, but he's had a fantastic role and he's only 6,700. I think he should be in the 7K tier. He's on a good team with a really good role. We saw a floor game from him in week 3, which was 10 DraftKings points. He got stuffed at the goal line a number of times, so easily could have been a 16 DraftKings point game. And, people would probably talk about him a little bit differently. I'm hoping people kind of jump off here after the 10-point game and the fact that he's 6,700 now. But I'm going to put Jordan Mason in the first look lineup. Joe Mixon, we'll see whether or not he plays. I did play Cam Akers in cash games last week. So, if he were out, we have Akers down at 5,300. I would play him in cash again. So if Joe Mixon misses this game, I will play Cam Akers in cash again, most likely. I'm not going to put him in this lineup because I don't know, whether or not he's playing. That's a good time to note. If you want access to not a first look lineup, you want my cash game core, you want my tournament core for small field contests, you want my 3-max core for 3-max entry contests, dfskarma.com/pricing. I post my cores every single Sunday morning. For all our subscribers, we have other analysts in there that drop cores as well. I also post cores for the 2-game slate on Monday night, which we cashed on. All the showdown slates. So if you want access to that, dfskarma.com/pricing. And if you want access to the plus 20 unit NFL bets on top of college football bets, college basketball will be coming soon, NBA will be coming soon, betkarma.com/pricing for that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button. Over 100 likes on every video this year, so I want to keep that streak going. I want to make sure we get to 100 likes on every single video, so please hit that like button. It does help us out. Moving down onto the mid-tier of running back here, outside of Mason, we're going to be watching a lot of injury news here. Like I said, Joe Mixon in injury news we'll be watching. Jaylen Warren injury news we'll be watching. So if Jaylen Warren, it sounds like he's going to miss this game. If he does, they do have Cordero Patterson there, but more importantly, they have Najee Harris at 5,600 against a really soft run defense in the Colts. I'm going to put him in the first look lineup. Not typically someone I like to play in cash game formats, but with Jaylen Warren potentially being out, it's a different situation and it's a really soft matchup. And I still think he, has a good chance to get goal line carries. So I like Najee Harris at 5,600 if Jaylen Warren misses. I also like Chuba Hubbard with this kind of revitalized Panthers offense. This is the last game that Jonathan Brooks will be out for sure until he can potentially come back from, being injured. And Chuba Hubbard was someone I liked coming into the season for season long because I thought, you're going to get a starting running back in the last couple rounds for at least the first few weeks. And then, Bryce Young just completely kind of tanked this offense. But Chuba Hubbard looked like I thought he could last week, 30 DraftKings points, but 21 carries for 100 yards. He got 5 targets. I like Chuba Hubbard at 5,700. If Joe Mixon plays and we don't get Cam Akers, and if Jaylen Warren plays and we don't get Najee Harris, I would play Chuba Hubbard at 5,700, I think, in cash games. Moving on to receiver. We're going to be watching Eagles news here for sure. Whether or not A.J. Brown's back, whether or not Devonta Smith can clear concussion protocol. Clearly dirty hit on Devonta Smith. I'm ashamed of the Saints for that. The Saints have a reputation as a dirty team, and that was a dirty hit on Devonta Smith. No way around it. So we'll be watching Eagles wide receiver news there. We'll obviously be watching San Francisco news, Kittle and Debo for sure. We'll be watching Keenan Allen news. So some injury spots to monitor here. I think if you're spending up at receiver, though, obviously Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has cooked the Packers in the past, but he's so much more expensive than everyone else. Like, I don't think you could play him in a cash game setting. If you were going to spend up, I think it has to be Jamar Chase here against the Panthers or Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Commanders. The Commanders continued their streak of being absolutely terrible against opposing wide receiver ones. Jamar Chase hadn't done anything all season, got cooking against them for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., profiles really, really well here. So both Chase and Marvin Harrison, if you're spending up, I think are the cash game considerations. Or you can go Rashee Rice, who is someone I've been really, really high on this season coming into it. If you read my season-long article there, you know that. We've played Rashee Rice. When he's been on the one time he's been on the main slate this year, I played him in cash. I know he's 7,300, but honestly, that might be too low. 14 targets last week. He continues to just operate in this high value role right over the middle of the field. He's basically playing the Travis Kelce role in this offense. They're going to get him the ball and he's going to run after the catch. Yeah. I'll put Rashee Rice in that range as well. So Chase, Marv, Rice in the 7K tier are all cash game viable for me. I'm going to wait until later to see if we can fit one of them in. If we're moving down here, Chris Godwin is still in cash game consideration for me. I played him in cash last week. He got super squeezed last week because of Ayuk, Olave, other guys around him. But once again, he had a great game. I mean, his low game of the year was last week, 17 DraftKings points, scored a touchdown in every single game. Absolutely love that he's playing the Cooper Kupp role in this offense. And this was a weird game for the Bucs, like where they just completely bottomed out on offense. Philly is a very, very good matchup for him, a team that is not good in coverage, a team that you can definitely pick on in the secondary. So Chris Godwin most certainly is back in the cash game consideration for me. Brandon Ayuk, once again, assuming Deebo Samuel's out, even if George Kittle plays, I think Brandon Ayuk is in cash game consideration here most certainly. Amari Cooper is not, but I just want to bring up the infamous double narrative game here for Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper not good on the road is a narrative. Amari Cooper revenge game against the Raiders. Which narrative will win out in the infamous double narrative game for Amari Cooper? These are the types of things that I bring to you guys on these videos that the people are just not talking about double narrative games. So, this is the type of edge that you get listening to me ramble and yap about daily fantasy sports. So thank you guys for tuning in. T. Higgins, 5,900, too cheap. T. Higgins caught a touchdown, but his foot was on the line or slightly out. So, I mean, he should have at least a 12 or 13 in this game log as opposed to a 6.9. 5,900 feels way too cheap for T. Higgins in a really, really good matchup. I'm interested in T. Higgins. I'm interested in Terry McLaurin. We're playing Jaden Daniels. He got cooking last week. Finally, it's a soft matchup here against Arizona. Another just double. Oh my God, the narratives are out of control here. I just realized this. Another double narrative game. Kyler Murray against Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury against the Cardinals. Double narratives are abundant on this slate. Absolutely insane week 4 slate we have here. But I'm interested in Terry McLaurin. And then Deontay Johnson. I mean, this is the guy that has been a top 10 receiver in football for a number of years and has been held back by bad quarterback play, bad teams. Finally, he got a quarterback that would just sling him the ball 14 times. He went for 122 and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, welcome to the first look cash game lineup, my good friend. Juwan Jennings is 5,600. So this is my point at the top of the video when I said if people are going to play Juwan Jennings this week again, I'm not going to play him. Why? What case can I make other than the fact that he went for 50 DraftKings points last week? What case can I build for Juwan Jennings in a low total game against the Patriots over Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, T. Higgins? I don't know if I can do that. Now, we do have a situation where kind of Brandon Ayuk is probably going to see Christian Gonzalez. If you guys don't know, I'm not a big wide receiver cornerback matchup guy. I think that's overrated in daily fantasy and fantasy football analysis in general. I think that's an overrated thing, but there are instances where it's applicable, like Pat Surtain. I think it's applicable to look at that. Christian Gonzalez has been very, very good this season, and the Patriots secondary as a whole has struggled outside of him. So I think taking the guy that's not going to be on him has been good. I did this with Mike Williams the other night in primetime. He went over his receiving props. So assuming Brandon Ayuk sees Christian Gonzalez, it is a good matchup here for Juwan Jennings. I just have a hard time playing him at 5,600 over Terry McLaurin, T. Higgins, or Deontay Johnson. But I don't know. Maybe I'll change my tune on that. But right now, I don't think he's a good play, especially if people are going to own him. I like George Pickens as well at 5,700. Man, he has been, if you guys don't kind of know the whole situation here, George Pickens kind of coming out of college, I was high on. And he's kind of he's kind of known as like a contested catch guy, right? That's George Pickens' game. He's going to get downfield, contested catch. He can break off big plays. He has been fantastic this year in separation, which is not George Pickens' game whatsoever. If he's going to be a guy that can be an elite separator, given his already robust skill set in terms of down the field and contested catch ability, the ceiling for George Pickens is top 8, top 7 receiver in football. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So yeah, this is someone I want to buy into for the remainder of the season. I'm not going to play him, in cash games over McLaurin or Deontay or even T. Higgins, but George Pickens at 5,700, I am interested in. And that's another guy I would probably play over Jennings. Should be a good matchup here against Indianapolis as well. Moving down from there, if Keenan Allen were to miss again, I am interested in Rome Odunze. Rams defense has been pretty suspect. Obviously, Juwan Jennings just went for 50 DraftKings points against them. So, I'm interested in a little bit of Rome Odunze. If Trey McBride were to miss this game, he's in concussion protocol. So, if he misses this game, I think we can look at maybe some value Cardinals, and we'll have to see how they project later on in the week. But, guys like Greg Dortch at 4,300 could come into play here for me in cash games. And then the one cheap guy I really want to bring up, last week I brought up Jacob Cowing on this video, but that was before, it was pretty evident late in the week that Jacob Cowing was not going to, play. So I didn't play Jacob Cowing in any of my contests, unfortunately. This week, we do have a cheap guy that is going to be on the field and is going to play, and it's a really, really good play. Noah Brown at 3,800. So I bet Noah Brown over his receiving yards on Monday Night Football. I also bet him to score a touchdown. He was down at the 1-yard line, so that was unfortunate, but he did go over his receiving prop. 3 for 56, 3 for 29. His routes have come up in each of his first 2 games. De'Ami Brown's routes have gone down. They went down on that Monday Night Football game against the Bengals. Noah Brown is a good NFL receiver, legitimately good. I like Noah Brown. I think he's a really good player. I think it's a good matchup. I think this is too cheap at 3,800. So he might catch some ownership in tournaments as the week progresses. I think he's cash game viable, to be quite honest with you. Don't know if I'll have to play him, but Noah Brown at 3,800 is a really good play, I think. So I'm going to come back to receiver here. Let's go to tight end. Man, yeah. I mean, we want to save money at tight end. These tight ends have been terrible this year. Trey McBride, like I said, is in concussion protocol, so we don't know if he's going to play. Travis Kelce's been completely dust at 5,800. There's no way you could play him at that price in cash games. Brock Bowers has been great, but 5,600 is getting a little bit pricey for me for cash games. George Kittle, we don't know if he's going to play or not. Dallas Goedert could be a beneficiary of like Devonta Smith and AJ Brown being out, like something crazy. Like, I guess I didn't mention that with the cheap Philly guys, but I mean, if there's a situation where both those guys miss, Britton Covey is on IR. So even if just one of those two big ones misses and Britton Covey's on IR, like, I don't know, maybe we could finally get something from Jahan Dotson, maybe Johnny Wilson. I have no idea. Would be a really thin situation, but Goddard would be a big beneficiary there at 5,100. But I just don't want to spend in this range right now in cash games like Pitts. I just don't want to play in these guys. So I think we need to find some savings here. You have Mike Gesicki at 3,500. He's been okay. Johnny Munt is 3,200. He caught a touchdown last week, but it was literally his only catch of the game. He caught a touchdown, had 7 DraftKings points. So, that's pretty thin. Jordan Akins, if David Njoku missed again, sounds like David Njoku might be back for this game. If he were to miss, you could talk me into Akins at 3K. I'm going to go to Tommy Tremble just because Adam Thielen's out. So we do have some target consolidation there with the Panthers. Tommy Tremble, 2,700. I'm going to plug him in the first look lineup. Cheap defense per usual here. Tampa at home against Philly. Chargers at home. Falcons at home. Houston at home against Jacksonville is fine. So we'll plug them in then. All right. So for the first look lineup, we have Jaden Daniels, Jordan Mason, Najee Harris, / Chuba Hubbard / Cam Akers, whoever, ends up being the play of those guys. Then we have Deontay Johnson, Tommy Tremble, Texans defense. That leaves us 6,600 per position for 2 receivers and a flex. I want to let's put in Terry McLaurin to go along with Jaden Daniels. And then that moves us to 7K per position for a receiver and a flex. Definitely think we can get up to a Rashee Rice type guy or a Marv type guy. I'm going to put Rice in just because he's the cheapest, and then that leaves you 6,800 for your flex spot. Chris Godwin, you could move defense down and get up to somebody like you could probably get to Marvin Harrison Jr. here if you wanted to somehow. But you have Chris Godwin there. You have Brandon Ayuk there. Like really, really flexible options there for the flex. So for the first look lineup, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Mason, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice, Tommy Tremble, Texans defense with 6,800 in the flex. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button. Get to 100 likes. Let me know in the comments. Talk to me. What went right? What went wrong? If you want to make fun of me for saying I'm not playing Juwan Jennings last week, go ahead and do it. I can take it. It's okay. It's okay to be wrong. I know that there's people in this space, both betting and DFS and fantasy season long. There's people that claim they're never wrong, but I'm never one to be shy. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I stand by the fact that I don't think it was a good play at high ownership, but it buried me. And sometimes that happens, but I'm never going to be shy about that. I'm going to come out here every single week, fight through the elements. I've got hurricane-like conditions going on in Ohio right now, but I'm battling through the elements to bring you these videos every single week. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you guys tune in to the live stream Sunday morning, get all my final thoughts on the slate, get my touchdown picks, all that good stuff. Good luck in week 4, and I'll see everybody on Sunday.